Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining, everybody. Today, we are going to be talking about a whiskey that used to be my go to answer when people would ask me what was a special bottle I could get somebody at any store that's somewhere between $80 to $100. Now, I've gone a couple years without having this whiskey and just recently purchased a bottle of it and had some very, very surprising results. Curious what we're talking about? Stick around. Thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. Now, today's video is actually not about the whiskey I was thinking I was going to be talking about today. But when the inspiration strikes, you got to follow it. So, what we are going to be talking about today is the Joseph Magnus triple cask. So, this is specifically the more gray silver label versus the gold cigar blend that we're going to go over later on in this video as a little bit of a comparison. But this was finished in sherry and cognac. And here, I can pull up the rest of the stats here. And it's non-age stated, but it is 100 proof. Now, one thing that caught my eye is that this was on sale in Northern Kentucky for $82 at one of my local stores. Majority of the time, I see this costing between $90 to $100. Now, it had been on my list to get back into this one. Hadn't tried it for many, many years. Many, many batches have gone by. And if you follow Nancy over on her Instagram, you know that they are getting their hands on some darker casts, some older casts, and I was curious how that would then run down into the Joseph Magnus main line here. So at $82, I was very intrigued. One other thing to talk about with that price real quick, but a lot of other brands that, let's say the bottle cost $100 back in 2019, have now raised that price up slowly but surely. It cost $120, $130, $140 in an ever competitive market. This is actually a brand that's stuck to its price point for pretty consistent here for like the last 6 years. Curious if you feel that way in your area. Now, why I bought this bottle is that I have been a little bit on a cigar blend kick, starting out with a copper and cask, which we can talk about on a future video, where I got a cigar blend from them that was finished in cognac, sherry, port, and Armagnac. Now, that one is cask strength and cost $70. Thus, the comparison to this $100 bottle typically that I got for $82. The other thing I got my hands on recently was one of the later batches of Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend. This is specifically batch 368. So my original idea was to compare these, but upon getting into this one, it kind of blew me away. So let's talk about why here, and then we'll get into the final scores. So thank you for joining today, everybody. Cheers. Let's get into this. We're going to go through the nose, the palate, into the final scores, and then have some final thoughts about this comparison I've been working on. All right, into the nose. Now, this batch, just to be clear here, is batch 389, if anyone's keeping track at home. The nose on this one is probably what initially caught my attention. It is rich and dark, and there's a lot of complexity here. So one thing in my area, I live in Cincinnati, we get Grater's ice cream, and there is a Grater's ice cream called Black Raspberry Chip. It is essentially this purple ice cream with huge chunks of chocolate chips in there. And it's one of my favorite ice creams, and I get that on the nose on this. So that was an immediate attention grab when you get something that's reminds you of something so specific. There's also some powdered sugar, also some custard. So we are leaning into a lot of sweet flavors, but there is some spiciness here, particularly some black pepper, and the oak on this thing stands out as well, giving it a nice balanced profile, particularly on the nose. On the nose, going to give this thing a thumbs up. Man, almost ventured to give it 2 thumbs up, but nothing quite wowed me, but it definitely caught my attention considering what we're talking about. All right, let's get into the taste. Wow. Mid palate is going to be the thing I'll concentrate on most. Up front, though, it is, you can feel the fact that it has been watered down. It is 100 proof. It feels oily, but at the same time, kind of thin as you run it across the palate there. And you can see a little bit of that if you zoom in on the glass here. You know, if I just do a quick little turn of this glass, you can kind of see that it leaves a good coating, but it runs off so quickly. And you feel that then on the tongue as well. Up front, the initial flavors are a little on the faint side, kind of get like a raspberry flavored Cool Whip sensation. There's also a lot of that pepper on the front of the palate. Mid palate, though, this is where it gets uh, just surprisingly blossoms into something. Let me go in for one more sip here. Very grapey. Definitely very grapey mid palate. You get a lot of that cognac influence. There's probably actually more influence from the finish than I was suspecting or that I remember based on bottles that I used to buy years ago. The other thing that stands out for me, in addition to the grape flavors, is the rich oak. There is a lot of good, rich, sweet oak on this thing. And that black raspberry chip ice cream continues to play through as well, giving a lot of sweetness in the mid palate. All right, let's get into the finish. Mm. Same flavors into the finish. Gets a bit spicier, get a bit more black pepper. The sweeter flavors turn more into a custard with some type of raspberry grapey reduction there. Some type of fruit syrup is all over that custard. Even gets into a little bit of a creme brulee kind of note. And the oak continues as well. And I'm really getting the oak here on the sides of the tongue. Now, the finish itself, medium to long finish. So probably once again, kind of held back from the fact that it is 100 proof. It doesn't have a really long finish, but for what it can do, it does it really well. So let's get into the final scores here. Oh, on the palate, thumbs up, and on the finish, thumbs up as well. So you can see that we're heading towards a positive review. So here on the channel, we do have this whole review score behind the scenes. There's 10 metrics, but ultimately you can summarize it into 3 constructs here: flavor score, experience score, and value score. On flavor, I was pretty impressed with it. Pretty much gave it 8s across the board, which is really good for something that is available on the shelf on a continual basis. Experience, gave it an 84. Got some props for that complexity on the nose that was unexpected and just how balanced of a blend this was. And then value, I gave it 100 points. I'm perfectly fine with the experience I'm getting here, especially at $82 getting it on sale. I'd be fine with it at 100, and I still think it has that status of being one of my favorite things to recommend as a go-to gift in this price range. When someone's looking to go in this price range, you got the marketing in the bottle too. I think it's just a really classy all-around thing to give as a gift. Hey, something to think about for the holiday season here around the corner too. I guess it would fit that as well. So in the end, actually scored this one at an 84. I thought that was high. That was higher than I thought going into this thing. I thought I was going to get somewhere 80, 82, but to get all the way to an 84 definitely caught me by surprise. That's why I wanted to talk about it on this review. Now, the other thing that caught me, now I got to sit down and score it, but I did get a Joseph Magnus cigar blend. This one's batch 368. Now, this one ran me $200 compared to the typically $100 silver label that I actually got for 82. And I don't know if it'll come across. I probably drank too much of the sample for that to convey there. Yeah, it's not going to quite do it. The Joseph Magnus silver was actually a little darker than the Joseph Magnus cigar blend. So that surprised me there. The other thing that surprised me here, now I will say the flavors and precision in the blend on the cigar blend do stand out. That extra proof stands out as well. But even on the cigar blend, these are pretty comparable, especially with it being twice the price. I'm going to go in for a sip of the cigar blend. This particular batch is much spicier, still has that custard creme brulee thing rolling through, and the grapiness and flavors aren't as pronounced on the cigar blend, but it does feel better constructed and balanced throughout too. So you're definitely getting something more elevated for your money there. But man, I think I'm probably going to grade this one between like an 86, 87. We'll see what the final scores come in on. But for just a few extra points, doubling up in price, it's a very nuanced game. That is for sure. But that caught me off guard. Now, the other one that I will compare it to, I'll talk about this one in a future week, but Copper and Cask. I got this at Party Source, and they did a cigar blend as well. This one's a little different because it does have port in it, in addition to the sherry, Armagnac, and cognac, and that gives it a different flavor profile. My intention was to compare all of these at some point to talk about the pricing and the value of these, but really, they're just all three really, really good whiskeys. So it really just depends what you're going for and how much you're willing to pay for it. But we'll talk about these cigar blends later. But man, that was a lot better than one of the prior batches I got. So I'm excited to see Joseph Magnus cigar blend, come back here as they get their hands on some older stocks. That excites me. And then I'll continue to get them. So let me know what you think in the comments about either the triple cask cigar blends, or if you got to try this Copper and Cask cigar blend. Curious there. What is your favorite cigar blend brand out there, since everyone's jumped on the bandwagon of calling these Finnish whiskey cigar blends? Curious to hear your opinion. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Once again, if you are looking to get a special gift for somebody this holiday season, maybe that Joseph Magnus is the one to get. And we'll catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, everybody.